you grew up in St. Mary's, Ontario on like a pig and chicken farm?
Yep.
Like, so
Literally covered in shit on every way. Literally.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Is wrestling.
welcome everyone to another episode of Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner. I am Cody Deaner, and I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a professional wrestling producer. I'm a professional traveling motivational speaker. I'm a father of 4 children and a husband to a beautiful wife, and I am a podcaster. This is my podcast. If this is your first time listening to Wrestling is Life is Wrestling, welcome. If you are a returning listener, thank you for joining us again. I am super excited for this week's guest, Traci Brooks. Before I go into a gushing introduction about my friend Traci Brooks, let me tell you and gush about a few of our sponsors. First, let me tell you about Rest When Dead clothing. Go to restwhendead.ca and see all their wicked awesome merch, high quality, super soft material. I just got done talking to my friend Havoc, who I've had on the show before, and she said, Cody, this is literally the most comfortable t-shirt I have ever worn. That is a rave review from Havoc. She loves her Rest When Dead t-shirt. You will too. Go to restwhendead.ca. Check out the entire collection. Check them out on Instagram at Rest When Dead Clothing, and you can see that my fellow TNA superstars, Crazy Steve and Jody Threat, are sponsored athletes with Rest When Dead. Also, go to ceofit.ca. Get all the supplementary needs that you need to stay fit, healthy, not just in your body, but in your brain. They have free shipping to Canada of orders over $120. And if you're in the States, you might not get free shipping, but guess what? Any size order, it doesn't matter. Get yourself 10 boxes of supplements. It's $6. $6 for shipping, no matter what size your order. And if you're American, you are going to get it converted to US dollars. You're going to be saving big because all the prices are in Canadian funds or a Canadian company. And because of the conversion, you're going to be saving a ton of money. That's at ceofit.ca. You can support me in some other ways, not just by supporting my sponsors, but by supporting me. Here's a couple different ways. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. Get yourself some t-shirts. You can get yourself a Wrestling is Life is Wrestling t-shirt. It's available now at prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. Get yourself a personalized video at cameo.com/Cody Deaner. You got a birthday coming up, an anniversary, any kind of celebration, get a gift for a friend. Get a crazy video from me to you over at cameo.com/Cody Deaner. Even better, head on over to my Patreon at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. I've got a store there. If you want to just buy individual episodes, either audio or video, you can do that now at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. Or even better, become a patron, become a monthly supporter of this project, and you get each and every episode early and ad-free. No split into parts 1 and 2. You get the entire conversation, no commercials, no intro, no outro, just raw, unedited footage, including with this week's guest, Traci Brooks. The entire interview, unedited, commercial-free, is up right now over on patreon.com/Cody Deaner, as well as bonus stories that will not be shared on this free version. All bonus stories from all my past guests. There's some doozies in there. Go check them out over at patreon.com/Cody Deaner, including a doozy with my guest this week for part 1 with a good friend of mine, Traci Brooks. When I think of the essential knockout of TNA wrestling, the OG, the one that's been there since the beginning, the OG knockout, the one that can do it all, I think of Traci Brooks. She's actually the longest contracted in-ring knockout in TNA wrestling history. And I didn't give her this compliment, but if she's listening to this now, I hope she hears this. When I think of Traci Brooks, I think of the Bobby Heenan of the Knockouts division. Now, anyone that knows me or has talked to me about some of the best workers in the world in history, I put Bobby the Brain Heenan at the top of the list because this guy could do it all. He was an amazing in-ring wrestler. He was an amazing commentator. He was an amazing manager. No matter what role you gave Bobby Heenan, you told him what you needed him to do, and he went out and he executed it to perfection. In my opinion, that's the sign of a true top shelf quality worker. We call them a worker here in the wrestling business. If you're a wrestler, you know what I'm talking about. If not, bear with me. But Traci Brooks is the epitome of a worker. She's the best knockout worker of all time, in my opinion. Now, here's the cool thing about that. Much like Bobby Heenan, Traci Brooks never won a championship. So she doesn't have these accolades of, multi-time knockout champion. No, she's a worker's worker in the sense that, hey, Traci, we need you to go out there and support, let's say, for a really awesome run, Robert Roode. We need you to be the valet. We need you to go help Robert Roode be hated and get heat. Traci Brooks did that. Hey, Traci, we need you to go out there and get the fans all riled up. Traci did that. It didn't matter what she was asked to do. She did it with a smile on her face, knowing her role, doing it to the best of her ability, and knocking out of the park every single time. Traci Brooks did that. She's done it since the day that I met her, and she's been in the business as long as I have. She started in 2001, right when I was jumping into wrestling, and I've known her since the beginning of my career, and I immediately fell in love with the worker known as Traci Brooks. She's an amazing woman. She's also an amazing mother and an amazing wife to fellow TNA colleague Frankie Kazarian. She has a beautiful family. And the other connection I have with Traci, she grew up 45 minutes from where I am sitting right now in my home. She grew up just down the road. I didn't know her growing up, but man, I feel like I have in this conversation, catching up with my friend that I've known for almost 25 years. That makes me feel old. If you're listening to this, Traci, sorry if I'm making you feel old too, but man, I just thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with who I think is one of the best female workers of all time, not just in TNA wrestling, but in wrestling in all time. I put her up there with a Sherry Martel. That's how highly I think of my friend Traci Brooks. And I'm so excited to have her here today for part one of our conversation. She might surprise you. I really wanted to dig deep into kind of her start into wrestling and kind of the mindset of being this girl that grew up on a pig farm in rural Ontario. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in rural Ontario, so I know what life was like, but she has a very unique female perspective of what it's like growing up in the middle of nowhere, rural Ontario, working on a pig farm, and then becoming a super successful knockout in TNA wrestling and being seen as a sex symbol to people. And what does that do to your brain? We dive into all of that with my friend Traci Brooks. So without further ado, I'm super excited. I hope you are too. Here is part one with TNA superstar. What am I doing? Oh my God, I can't introduce her yet. I have to give her her true flowers here. I forgot to mention, of course, stupid me. She's a Hall of Famer. Just this past year, in the class of 2023, Traci Brooks was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Maybe I subconsciously just didn't want to maybe bring that part up, only because, spoiler alert, when we talk about that, it's the first time that I have cried in this project known as Wrestling is Life is Wrestling. Traci Brooks brought a tear to my eye as we talked about her Hall of Fame experience. But yes, this is a Hall of Famer, Traci Brooks. And that that shows you right there just how special Traci Brooks is. Despite never winning a championship and given all these honors, and these medals in wrestling, no, she got the ultimate medal. She got the recognition of her peers, because I know I'm not the only one that puts Traci up there on a pedestal for being one of the best workers of all time. I know others do. That's what you have to be if you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. And Traci Brooks, she is a Hall of Famer. So yes, let's listen to part 1 with TNA Hall of Famer and my friend Traci Brooks. Hi, Traci Brooks.
Hi, Cody. How are you, Deaner?
I am fantastic. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. I'm so proud of you. I feel like you're my child and you've grown up into this wonderful adult who's doing so many amazing things. So I'm so honored to be on the show.
Oh, Traci, you're my sister. You're not my mom. You talk to yourself like you're too old, but you could get in there like you did recently. You can show those young girls how to do it. You're awesome. And I know you don't like, and you said this in our text back and forth, like, oh, I'm just so honored that you thought of me.
Yes.
And like, you were like one of the people at the top of my list, Traci, of people that I wanted to talk to. I'm like, you are literally at one of the top of my list, because what I want to do is I want to talk about wrestling. And I think your journey and story is an awesome one. But then also I kind of talk about life lessons and things like that. And anytime we've talked and, for lack of a better term, bitched about wrestling together, right. And we're not going to do that for an hour, but I mean, like, there is things though that, like, whenever we've had conversation, I've always gone away going like, that's true about the real world and life. You know what I mean? Like, and I think, you're a smart, insightful person who's also built a wonderful life for yourself.
Thank you.
So like, that's just a couple of the many reasons why I want to talk to you, but that's just a few. So I really appreciate you your time.
I always think if someone wants me on their podcast, they've run out of guests. It's like, we have no one else. Will you be on my podcast?
Hell no. This is kind of like a newer venture. Kind of. I'm almost like halfway through a year. Like, I'm like on episode, already, which is kind of flown by, but yeah. So each guest that I have, I split into 2 parts. I do a 2-parter. So this is going to be a 2-parter with Traci Brooks. Yeah.
I love the fact that though, all your interviews too, they talk about mental health with the girls and stuff like that. And I think that's it's a great platform and stuff like that. SoCal Val and Mickey James and Lisa Marie, who do God TV. It's also amazing for those girls to talk about it. Like even being nervous, like Tori Wilson. I remember I listened to the God TV episode and Tori Wilson talked about how nervous she was walking out in a bikini. And I'm like, really? Because you did not look nervous at all. But I was horrified. So it was nice to know. And I think it's nice for the younger generation to know that it's okay to be like this. We did not rock it. We were scared to death, but we lied and, not lied, but we pretended, and fake it till you make it kind of thing. So I think these kind of chats are so important.
Yes. And it's important for 2 sets of people. The people that you just said, like the younger people in the business, they're like, oh, wait, I don't have to feel alone in this because other people that I looked up to felt the same way. And then also the average wrestling fan or person who has all those same feelings that kind of put us on pedestals. And then we kind of pull the curtain back just a little bit and go, hey, you do know that before I went out to the ring for that bikini contest, I was absolutely terrified. Oh, really? Like, you're not this confident person that you're projecting. It's like, no, I have all the same insecurities and vanity and all those things that everybody has. I do too, even though I project myself as this other thing. I think that's important for everybody to hear, not just other young wrestlers.
You're absolutely right. But because they think it's not harder for us, but I mean, it's harder every day just to be anyone in this life, right? You're judged from social media and you compare, like back in our day, we compared ourselves to magazines. Remember those magazines? Like, whatever. I don't even remember what they were. but in touch or something. So, but now it's social media that they have. So it's not, we couldn't even afford those magazines. Social media is free and it's at everyone's fingertips.
That's
so
right.
I can't imagine how hard it is now, especially for younger kids growing up, male or female.
I know. And it's 24/7, right? Like
Awful.
when we were younger, you know, for yourself, like, you know, you're only going to come into contact with those, you know, going through the aisle at the grocery store, and you got all those in touch and stuff on the side. And they're like,
Yes.
oh, wait, that's what women look like. Like, oh, and like that, it starts to infiltrate your psyche kind of there.
Yes.
But now it's literally nonstop 24/7.
It's too accessible in my opinion, but we'll get to
Yes. Yes. And we now, you and I both, as parents, we have to navigate all this, right? As parents. I mean, you have a son. I have 3 girls, Tracy. I have
I can't believe that.
I have 3. I have a son too, but I have 4 children, and 3 of them are beautiful blonde girls. And I'm so grateful that my oldest hates modern technology. She made us get she made us get a landline. So we literally have a phone with a cord, landline.
I love it.
And she loves Anna Green Gables and Anne with an E, and anything that's like old school, live in the prairies and just be a farmer. That's what she wants. I'm like, oh, okay, good. Yes.
But that's her upbringing from you guys, though. That's because you guys are grounded and wonderful parents. And it's hard because it's a battle you're fighting every day. You know, so-and-so has it. All my friends have it. Everyone at school. My son's in grade 5 and kids have had phones since grade 3. We are getting him a phone just because of what's going on in the world so we can stay in touch with him.
Sure.
But there'll be no social media. He has no urge for social media. He actually doesn't like it either. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like the fact that everyone can just tell you how they're feeling at that moment, like negatively. And he's like, well, that's not nice. Why would you say that? Like, why would you go out of your way to say that? That's what I don't understand. I don't understand why the energy it takes to go out of your way to be mean to somebody. I'll never understand that.
I know.
And then you want to respond, but you know, so it's like, why do you feel that way? I'm so, you know, why do you waste your energy? But it's like, God, no, just block them and move on. Like,
Yep. I just had this conversation with a friend where regarding social media, because when I had my first television contract with TNA in 2009, it was when Twitter blew up and everybody was getting on it. And there was like, it was encouraged, like, oh, this is a way to interact with fans. And because I was playing a crazy redneck love interest of ODB that was like this crazy, right? So like, I've decided, well, my character wouldn't have a cell phone and know how to use Twitter, so I'm not going to get it. So the negative is that I missed out on growing a huge kind of following at the height of that, and everybody from that era that started when I didn't even have a personal Facebook account until like 5 years ago. Like I avoided it, right? So the positive of that is, so the negative is I missed out, but the positive is I was just in 2009, I was married. We're going to start a family. So I didn't spend all my early years with my children with my doing this.
Yeah.
You know, and oh, what are they saying about me? And and all the negative, toxic shit that is thrown at us from fans that we have to then deal with. And I don't care how thick your skin is, which we learn to have thick skin in wrestling. Doesn't matter how thick it is. Those bullets, sometimes they're like BBs that we can like we can like knock away, and then other times they're pellets where they leave a bruise, and then sometimes they're bullets that are like, no matter how hard or what armor we put on, they can penetrate.
Exactly. And it's sometimes too is the day. Like sometimes you're just having a bad day and you go on Twitter and you're like, oh my God, or any social media, and it's like, oh my God, am I really like that? Because you're just in a bad place and you're vulnerable. But it's, and like my husband Frankie always says, you know, you avoid the 100 wonderful comments about you and you focus on that one. And I think that is everybody, but it is true. But it's honestly too, the day it's like, you know, I feel great today and I'm going to, you know, go on Twitter and I just laugh at those comments. But then another day where I'm feeling vulnerable and sad or something or emotional, and I go on, I'm like, oh my God, they think I'm fat. But they like, you go on and on. But yeah, it is hurtful. And I just don't get it. I feel sad for the people that, I don't know if they're looking for attention or if they're just they're so unhappy in their own lives. They want other people to be unhappy. And I'm not like that. even as a bartender back in the day of the Queens, I wanted everyone to have an amazing time. And I had control of that because I can get people drunk, or, you know, I controlled how much alcohol you had. But I always wanted people just to be happy and in a good mood. And I'm like that in life too. I just want you go to a wrestling show, enjoy yourself, be happy, feel that, like, feel the emotion. That's what I loved about wrestling, is the emotion of it. Let us take you on a journey. But and that's why you said earlier about, it's great we've opened the curtain a little bit about mental health, but sometimes I think we've opened the curtain too much on wrestling, where everyone's so much more interested in backstage stuff and contracts and who hates who and who likes who and who's with who. And it's like, man, just take us on, like, let us take you on a journey. That's what we're here for. You know, like,
let there be a little bit of mystery. Like, you know,
yes. I think it's every business though too. So I don't care what so-and-so's doing. I want to know what the plot line is. You know, I want to feel the emotion. I want to cry. I want to be happy. I want to be sad. I want to be angry, you know, and the characters, I want to be involved in the characters and what they're feeling. I don't care how much they're making, you know?
Right. I know.
I don't care. I hope they're getting paid well, but I don't care about how much they're making, who's sleeping with who's doing this, who hates who's fighting with who. It's tiring.
I know. Just let me take you on a journey. Like you said, like that's what always drew me to wrestling too. Yes. I'm assuming that was like you when you were younger, which I want to talk about. I'm interested in. Let's take us on a journey, Traci, because I want to know if you're willing to talk about this. I think you've talked about this publicly, because I know this just because I'm your friend, but I've also read this too. Like, you grew up in St. Mary's, Ontario, on like a pig and chicken farm.
Yep.
Like, so
literally covered in shit on every way. Literally.
Right. So like, I want to get a sense of, I want our listeners to get a sense, because some people are going, wait a minute. They cannot picture, well, St. Mary's, Canada. They just assume that you're living in igloo if you're Canadian, which isn't.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're like, what do you mean there's a pig chicken farm? I'm like, when I started doing my redneck character, I'm like, dude, I grew up in a redneck town. They're like, there's rednecks in Canada? I'm like, oh, hell yeah, there is. Oh, yeah. St. Mary's being one of those places. Like
5,000 people.
Yes.
And it's a huge farming community. And we have limestone as our biggest thing. That's what we produce. So the town is beautiful. I always compare it to It's a Wonderful Life, Bedford Falls, sorry, not Bedrock, Flintstones, Bedford Falls. And that's exactly what it is. But it's a farming community. So I literally grew up with 500 pigs and about 7,000 to 10,000 chickens. Okay. And every day I had my rubber boots and my overalls, and you change, in the freezing cold, you had to go from the house to the shop to change, and then the shop to the barn. But I wouldn't change it. Like, no, I remember even going, like, I drove an F-150 flatbed in high school, and it literally had pig shit in the back, because that's how we transported our pigs in the trailer that's how I grew up. And, you had to pick stones and you had to plant corn, and, being a girl too, I had to do all that, plus help in the house. But it was such a great upbringing. Like, I wish Rebel had that. Yeah. Because I learned I had to go to work. If you didn't, animals died. Yep. And you didn't get fed. The community doesn't get fed. We transported pigs all the way to Quebec and all the states and stuff like that. So you had to work. It didn't matter what state of mind you were in. You had to show up. And that's what my parents instilled in me. Like, you had to show up. It doesn't matter if you're hungover, if you're mad, if you're sad, if you're having a mental health day, you still had to show up. Right. And I think that's what got me into wrestling. That's how I was successful in wrestling and being a mom, because it doesn't matter how many times you're down in the dumps. It's like, I still have to get up and show up for myself. And I think that's so important. Like, you just can't. And again, we had pigs and animals to feed. So if we didn't show up, they died.
So there's a lot of correlation there to wrestling. But I the first thing I thought of is, because people that don't grow up around farms or on a farm don't fully get it or understand. But like, I didn't grow up on a farm, but I was in like a farming community surrounded by farmland. And I went to a high school where my high school, when people went to prom, they wouldn't come on a limo, they'd come on a tractor. Yes. Right. So it was like, bring your tractor. And then the town I live in now, there's a day called tractor day where
Yes.
everybody brings their tractors. They go to
Love
school
it.
on a tractor, right? So it's like, I worked on a tobacco farm when I was young, when those were still a thing. So like I worked on a farm, but I always remembered when I played football, the farm kids that were on that football team had like a next level of work ethic, that it didn't matter how many times you hit them, they got back up. It didn't matter how many practices there were. They were on when the ball was there, and it's like, oh, we're diving for a loose ball. It was like always the farm kid that like was able to like beat you to it and like kick your ass no matter what. Like that level of like show up was just so much higher with the farm kids.
It's
because
farm
I think of
strong
what you're
too.
saying. Yeah.
There's farm strength, because I didn't work out in a gym. I was slinging pigs over my shoulder. I was slinging pounds of beans to put in the planter. I was slinging. You're farm strong.
You're right.
I didn't lift a dumbbell until I was, I don't know, in wrestling. Like
I got buddies like that too. Farm strong. It's so a thing. That is so a thing.
It is. And I ate 2 pork chops and pound of mashed potatoes. I didn't know what dieting was because I burned it off because I was working. But as hard as we worked, we also played hard. So I traveled for travel baseball, fastball, basically. So I worked, but yes, because that's just what we did.
Yep.
But you had to work, and then you got to. But then we also fished and camped, and so I mean, we had a great childhood. But you worked first. And then, if it was a nice day, but you had plans to go with your friends, nope, we're out in the field because you have to pick stones, you have to plant, you have to do this, you have to wick weeds.
Yeah.
But you have to. And as a child, it's like, I hate this. I'm going to grow up and never do this again. Now I wish I could go back.
Right. I know.
Like I would like
something innocent about it or something. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, you just like, I look at my mom, she had 3 kids. My dad worked on the farm. My mom had to do all the household chores, plus all the animals, and then feed my dad, and plus all the people. And then, they partied those dances, and then they had midnight meals. And again, I'm sure my mom had mental health issues, but she still had to show up, and she still had to be there. And I think sometimes we don't stress that enough. And sometimes it's better too. If I'm having a bad day and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's like, but then you do it. It's like, oh man, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Like it helped me, and it helped me get through it. Helped me get through my rough patch kind of thing. But I mean, that's for me. I can't speak for everybody else, but I just wish people would show up more. I wish they have to.
That's the thing. So with farming, it's like, if you don't show up, the animals die. Right. There's actually a correlation in wrestling, and I've talked about this a lot with people, is like, if I don't show up properly in the match and like ready to lift you up to do this dangerous thing, you could die.
Yes.
If I don't show up and do this properly. Oh God, like there's someone's life is on the line, right? And I think in so much nowadays, like with kids, I see it is, my kids are in the system, right? This public, education system, and then the public sports system, everything. It's like, there's like, oh, do you need a mental health day, or do you need it? Like they're given outs, right? And I understand, I get it, because there are some kids that like, they need an opportunity to have to they might need a safe place to go.
Yes.
Because everybody's different, right? Like I get that. However, in some ways we've gone too far to the other side, where it's like, no, you're giving the younger generation opportunity to not even show up. Yes. And then they never learn that ethic that you're talking about.
I'm so thankful we're so aware of mental health. I'm so thankful we're aware of kids have feelings. We just can't brush them aside. Their life is like, they have a bad day at school. That's their world, right? Their world's a lot smaller than ours. And on that, to senior citizens, the same thing. Their world gets smaller.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for mental health, and we're aware of all the other like learning disabilities and stuff. But again, get the help you need 1,000%. You need a minute, absolutely. But we still have to show up. We still have to show up to work. We still have to show up for your opponent. We still have to show up for ourselves. Yes. Like you have to show up for yourselves. And again, I hope no one takes this the wrong way. I'm so thankful for mental health, and we could have saved a lot of people back in the day, or helped kids learn. Like dyslexia, that's not that old of a, like we just really learned about that. And and kids all learn in different ways.
That's right.
But again, we just also have to tell them, take a heartbeat, like take a minute, take a deep breath, do what you have to do, but then you got to get back out there. Because like halfway through a match, what happens if that person doesn't show up?
Exactly.
You're paralyzed. You're dropped on your head. Your career is cut short. Their career is cut short because now they have a reputation of. So it's the same thing like back in the day when you worked out, your largest weight you lifted was at the end. Because at the end of the match, you have to pick that guy up and body slam him. He might be 350 pounds.
Yeah.
So you have to stick through it and do the work.
Yes.
But I hope no one, I'm very sensitive to people who we
Me
all
too.
have it.
Yeah. I grew up around my father, suffered from manic depression. He was bipolar. So like I grew up in a household where mental health was at the forefront. So like no one has a greater understanding of it, I guess, respect for it, as me, because I grew up around it. So like I get it too. But I go into schools and I do speeches and I talk about the importance of mental health and like I do a whole thing about it. But part of that is teaching them, hey guys, one of the things I tell kids, I go, have you ever been told you can be whatever you want to be? And they all put up their hand. Yeah, I've been told that. I'm like, oh, great. That's someone nice has said that to you. And then I say, guess what? That's a lie. And those people lied to you. And they're all like, and I go, the truth is we have to finish the sentence like this. You can be whatever you want to be if you put in the work. Yeah. That's the truth.
I love
right?
That.
So it's like, I'm telling them like, look, imagination is important. Our mental health is important, but it doesn't take away this ingredient that's necessary when whatever we're doing in our life, we have to show up and we have to put in the work.
Oh my God, I love that.
That lesson is never going to go away, no matter what is happening in society or what policies are in place. It's still the case, no matter what. I want to take a pause from our conversation to tell you about today's sponsor, ceofit.ca. Their byline is simple: conquer, evolve, overcome. Do you need to conquer your next workout? Or maybe you've hit a plateau in your exercise game and you need to evolve. Or you're starting to find there's some obstacles in the gym that you can't overcome. CEO Fit will help you conquer, evolve, and overcome any obstacle in your way with their top of the line supplements. Whether it's a pre-workout to help you crush that next cardio session, or man, you did crush that cardio session and you need to fill your muscles back up with some high quality protein, we got that for you at ceofit.ca. There's also creatine, vitamins, test boosters, seasonings, and syrups to make your meal not just tasty but healthy too. Oh, I can't forget, they're not just going to help you work out your muscles. They're going to help you work out your brain. They got nootropics for brain function right now at ceofit.ca. Are you a Canadian that you've listened to commercials like this before and then you jump on the website and realize, wait a minute, this free shipping or cheap shipping that they're talking about doesn't apply to me because I'm Canadian? Well, guess what? ceofit.ca is a proud Canadian company, and we are offering to you Canadian listeners any order over $120, free shipping. Now, you US customers and listeners right now might be going, wait a minute, what about me? Well, I got something for you too. It doesn't matter how big your order is. You might go over there and go, man, I need it all. And you get 10 boxes full of these awesome supplements. It's going to cost you $6. $6. Any size order, anywhere in the United States, $6 in shipping. Not only that, American, with the conversion rate, any price that you see on ceofit.ca, it's going to convert it to US dollars. So everything's going to be even cheaper for my American customers. So you need to conquer, you need to evolve, you need to overcome. Well, there's only one place that you need to go, and that's ceofit.ca. That's ceofit.ca. it's important for us to teach the next generation that in
Absolutely.
a safe,
Yes.
meaningful way.
Because
right?
too, not every parent is present and not every
Ah.
parent is putting in the work. So
That's right.
some kids, I always tell Rebel, because I'm like, we will give you all the tools, hard work, drive. We're going to push this, but you have to do the work. Like, I can't buy you a paleontology degree.
Mhm.
I can't buy you a wrestling contract. I can't, even if you're this third generation or second generation wrestler, that's no guarantee. You still have to put in the bumps and the work and the running of the ropes and putting up the ring and selling
Mhm.
merchandise. And we can't do that for you, but I'm going to teach you what hard work is. And,
Yes.
I'm going to teach you, you don't procrastinate, not me and Frankie, not to procrastinate. Like, you put in the work. You have to put in
Mhm.
the body work and this and that. Frankie always says too, we spend so much time on our bodies and what we put into it and what we, work out, but we never put that much energy into our mind. So like, I believe therapy is great. And even if that's a group of girlfriends I have, that I
Yes.
just got to go vent to, or the guys, like you guys after a match, just go have
Yep.
fun and vent and relax. And,
Yep.
or if it is a therapist or whatever, but I think everybody needs that, and I
100%.
mean, I'm very lucky I have all that.
Yeah.
And I know some people don't. So
I know.
it might be easy for me to sit here and just say, show up, because I was taught that way. There are people that weren't taught that way.
That's
And then
true.
social media gives us everything instantaneously.
Yep.
Oh, 700 people liked me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Not what life is.
I know.
Yeah, first of all, you don't look like that. Second of all, you didn't do it. Like, you put a filter on a picture and want people to say you're so pretty or you're so fit, or you're like, we live in a world where we can make our ass bigger, our waist smaller on TV, like on camera, but it's not who you are.
I know.
Like, and all these people like it, but they don't know you. Go out
That's
in
right.
public and see if 700 people.
The thing too is that I've heard this said a lot, and it's so true. It's like, Twitter's not the real world.
It's not.
Right? It's not real. Like,
No.
so, and that's a hard thing to, again, impress upon and teach the next generation. It's like, and I wish we could, because unfortunately, we know we've lost kids because they thought what they were reading was real, and that opinion, they put so much weight on it because they thought it was real. But then they go out, and if they just went out into the real world and interacted one-on-one with human beings, they would realize, oh wait, it's not like this. People aren't nameless, faceless assholes like they are on TikTok. Right?
Yes.
That's not real. That's something else. It's this very strange.
And it's such a small part of the world. Like, it's such a
Yeah.
small percentage of the world. And then wrestling on top of that is such a small percentage of Twitter.
Yeah.
But this is what I say. As adults who we've lived through our hormonal, like, teenage years. We are adults. We have children, we have families, we have, money in the bank. We have all this stuff. As adults, we have been divorced. Social media has cost divorces, our jobs, sometimes god awful our lives. And now we want children who have not even been through their own hormones to do this. We as adults cannot handle this. And now we're asking children to do it and wondering why children are not succeeding.
That's right.
We can't succeed. I'm 48 years old and still things on social media. Well, they think I'm fat. Like,
yes.
And
which is why I'm so grateful that my daughter just wishes she was a pig and chicken farmer from St. Mary's, because
I
it's
love
like,
that.
yeah, it's like trying to instill those things. I have a note here that I wanted to ask you about, and I've never talked to you about this, and I don't even know if it's real and true, but I read, and maybe it's wrong. Did you grow up with Erb's palsy?
I did.
Oh,
so
I don't. Oh, so okay, this is fascinating to me, Tracy. I didn't know this.
You did.
So what? No. And maybe it's something I learned like really early on in us meeting one another, and then I just forgot about it. And the reason I didn't even know is because I'm gonna say this, it's because you're so damn talented that like this issue that you grew up with, I had no idea, because you're so damn talented. So that's why it never even crossed my radar.
So my mom is a very petite woman, very
Okay.
petite. And I was a big baby, a giant baby.
Okay.
And the doctor was on the golf course and got paged to come in because my mom was in like paged or whatever, however they do it back in 75. Smoke signals, I don't know. But he, instead of giving my mom a C-section because I was stuck, he ripped me out. So all my tendons and ligament.
Forcep deal. Yeah.
Well, I think he just yanked me by my shoulders.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
So all my tendons and ligaments snapped. So I don't have a tricep or a bicep. It's like a unicep. And I can't lift my arm.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I also can't turn my hand over. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
But when I was born, like now they have surgery. All they do is go in and attach everything and you're fine. Back then in 1975, they're like, oh, she's breathing. She's fine. And my mom was like, she was just so happy because I did some damage to my poor mom. So she was just happy I was breathing and alive and somewhat healthy. I was healthy. So she actually rehabbed my arm. And so she made like a little sling that was in, the little bounce thing back in the day. She put like a sling to straighten my arm. And she was the one that actually strengthened it. So I could actually, it's 2 inches shorter. It's actually getting worse as I get older, which is it's not funny, but it's,
wow.
But I never noticed it until, so I was left-handed in baseball. So I was a pitcher because I have a natural curve. Played field hockey. Field hockey, they only have right-handed sticks. So I just flipped mine. Everything I did left-handed. I didn't know until I got into wrestling this issue. Right. Never bothered me before. I could sling pigs over my shoulders. I could do this. I never lifted dumbbells. Picking stones. I was like nothing. So I got into wrestling and I was asked to do a handstand bump. So I'm like, I kept trying to do a handstand. I kept falling over. Like, what is wrong with you? And then I realized, shit, I have no muscle. Like, and then my arm, I have like this chicken wing in my back of my shoulder. Again, farm girl, tomboy, not a sexy bikini wearing Playboy, nothing.
Sure. Yeah.
So all of a sudden I got into wrestling. I'm like, what is happening? And then like I'd have to raise tag team, like if I was managing a tag team.
Yeah.
Which was a big joke later on in my career. I'm like, don't put me in the middle. Like I can't.
Oh man.
But they kind of started to do a story about it at Impact.
Okay.
TNA back in the day.
Yep.
TNA now too.
Yes.
So
Me too.
But it just kind of died. I guess it never really went anywhere. But I wanted to do it with the beautiful people because I'm like, what better 2 girls to do this with? Like make fun of my disability, but then I come out on top. But I don't know, it just fell through. So, but no, that's the whole joke with me. And then like this chicken wing thing in the back of my arm. So I'm trying to do sexy photos and this chicken wing is sticking out like my.
Well, I wanted to bring this up because there's somebody out there, whether that's either dealing with this thing or like just a quote unquote disability of some sort, that it's like it's giving them limited beliefs about themselves because of that. And I just think it's the fact that you dealt with this and it didn't even come up until you went to do a handstand bump, but then you were able to just work around it and you worked around it for your
everything.
So are you actually left-handed or did you do
I right-handed because my arm's bent. So your
so
arm's bent when you're right.
You really just learned to do things left-handed, really.
So I throw left-handed. I do everything left-handed except like schoolwork. I do right-handed because my dad said, so when I was younger, I would eat like Jello or liquid with my left hand, but I'd eat everything else with my right hand.
Wow.
But I didn't grow up as they're just like, suck it up, buttercup, let's go.
Yeah.
Like it was never a big deal. It was never an issue. My dad always commends my mom for putting in the work because if she didn't, I could be like this today because it would freeze, right? But when I started working out at the gym, this is when I got frustrated because I can't do bicep curls because I can't turn. I can do hammer curls.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Triceps and stuff. But even I have to do everything with a machine or connected because if I do it individually, I'm like,
wow.
Even like shoulder, like I can't
oh my
god. Like someone would have to hold my.
Wow.
So it was, I don't know. It would get frustrating. I'd be in a gym like I'd be in a gym and get frustrated because I'm like, all I can lift is 5 pounds. I can't even do shoulder presses over my head with free weights because one would fall on my head.
Mhm.
So it did get me frustrated, and sometimes I did leave the gym pissed off and just walked out. But I don't, especially now as I'm older, I found swimming and I found Pilates and I found things that, I work around and stuff like that. So,
Mhm,
but in
mhm.
wrestling, I do things left-handed.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I throw a clothesline left-handed because that's the only arm I can.
So I'm learning fascinating things about you, Tracy. This being one of them. This whole thing, it's very inspiring to me. I feel like I could talk to you a whole lot about it. But another fascinating thing to me that I read, and again, this might be wrong, but I think the reason I think it's fascinating is one, you talk about, self-consciousness, right? And that all females, well, males too, but females in the business really deal with. Being a farm girl, tomboy, not a swimsuit type thing, right? But from what I read, isn't swimsuit kind of how you got into wrestling from the being a sun girl, like that, which was a
Yes.
big thing in Canada at the time, right?
Yes.
Being a sunshine girl or something, like wasn't that your
Page 3?
yeah,
Page
right?
3, page 6?
So that was your in. Like, how the hell did that happen? This tomboy from
Yeah.
St. Mary's that's not
I
wearing
don't know.
swimsuits how did this happen?
So I went to I graduated high school and then I went to Barrie, Ontario, Canada for school. Georgian College.
Georgian College, okay.
Yep. And I went for hospitality, hotel and resort operations. It was basically a business course, but it was all hospitality based.
Sure.
Like an idiot, I dropped out. Stupidest move I've ever done. To this day, I still regret it. And I still think about going back because how can I tell my son, you got to do this when mom didn't do it. So
sure.
It was stupid. I shouldn't have went. I kind of knew I'm not a school person. I wish I was. Like my son is a 4.0 and a GPA and he's just, I am not a school person. I'm a worker that I shouldn't have went. I should have just went and worked or anyways, I ended up getting a job at the Queen's Hotel in Barrie, which is a pretty famous bar. It's 40 minutes north of Toronto. And it was the 2000 calendar, the year 2000 calendar. And my customers put in a picture of me for a contest and I won. So then I had to do my first ever bikini shoot, which I still to this day don't wear bikinis. I hate bathing suits.
Yeah.
They're not, even when every photo shoot I took in a bathing suit, I'm like, I hate it. I barely wore clothes in my photo shoots, but I hated bathing suits. I hated them. So somehow I won. And then I had to do a photo shoot and then everyone had to vote. Like they had to cut out the Sunshine Girl thing and then mail it in. So all my customers, it was Canada Day weekend. We call it Promenade Day weekend at the Queen's Hotel. We're open from 11 a.m. to 2 in the morning. I worked 5 days straight. So all my customers clipped it, sent it in. I won. So I was Miss June 2000.
Yeah.
And I then did the Sunshine Girl to promote it. And I put to be the next WWF at the time superstar. And that's, and I called Kevin, I sent in a package to WWE because of course I had hair extensions and, and it was funny too, because we went to some rocky place to take pictures and all the other girls were like, I don't want to kneel down in this rocks. I was like, oh, get me in here. And I'm like, in there. And I'm like,
sweet. Hell yeah.
Whatever. And then I even sent a package to WWF and Kevin Kelly called me back and said, you look great, but how do I know you can even move? Like at that time they needed, they wanted people. They're like, are you coordinated? And so he recommended going to a school, getting some training and then sending him the tape in. So, and then I got in touch with Ron Hutchison and that's how my good old bikini photo shoot.
Wow.
Which is really, so I got to know the photographer and the makeup hairstylist, who were phenomenal. They were doing a thing what men really want. And it was a really skinny, beautiful model. And then it was me, curvy, heavier, which was hilarious. So then that was like the next, like this is what women want, not that. So it was really fun. But yeah, so then I ended up doing a couple photo shoots for the Sun, but I hate bikini photo shoots to this day.
Oh, Traci. So that's
They were,
it's you got through it though. You showed up even
yeah, I
though
showed
it
up
was
and did
gonna
the
be
work.
hard. You showed up, you
Yeah.
did the work, and it got you, you're in. So you grew up a wrestling fan then, like when you were really young. So that was always
Grade
something on
6.
your radar?
Grade
Oh,
6.
okay.
So no one really, not a lot of people know this. I loved soap operas and I wanted to be a
Ah,
soap opera star. I
okay.
loved the ridiculous storyline. They got to make out with people. They got to have their hair and makeup done. Like it was something so opposite of me, but I loved the ridiculous storylines, but I was also very physical and athletic. So
Mhm.
I found wrestling and I was like, oh my God, this is
Mm.
everything. It's a soap opera, but I get to beat the shit out of people. Like it
Mhm.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then I watched Miss Elizabeth and Macho Man, and she drove me nuts because I'm like, jump, get in there, like do
Yeah.
something, and she would just cry, and I'm like, fast forward realizing she's the reason I got into wrestling, and
Yep.
yeah, but
Mhm.
it was that's how I always wanted to be a soap opera star. I
That
still
is
do.
so sure.
Why not?
Well, so what is it? And I don't know if you've ever thought of this before, but what is it about you that made you even think, oh yeah, I can do this? Like, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
when Kevin Kelly says go get training and like, oh, I have to go to the school, even though you hate bikinis, but if you're watching wrestling at that time that that's like a
Mhm.
requirement, it's a prerequisite. But you had enough confidence to decide, yeah, okay, I'm actually going to try this when there's so many people. There's way more wrestling fans than there are wrestlers,
Mhm.
right?
For a
Because
reason.
right, for a reason. There's a small percentage that are actually insane enough to say, I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
Is it, is it the confidence instilled in you from your mom, like, or in the work she put in, or like to help you learn to show up, like, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, what is it about you maybe do you think made you be able to show up?
it's a good question. And it's funny because my parents were always very positive and again instilled a hard work ethic in me. But I was always I was always self-doubting. I still am today. I'm
Sure.
very insecure and self-doubting, and that's a natural state, I think. So I don't know. I think I didn't want to be the bikini clad. I wanted to be the different. I wanted to be China, kind of, like
Mm,
the different, um, the different. I don't know. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And what's even funnier is, so I got trained and then I started doing the indies.
yeah.
But then I started getting booked in the States. So I remember sitting down with my boss at the Queen's Hotel going, just give me 1 year to get all these dates off. Because he sat down, 1 year? What the hell was I thinking? I said, 1 year for me to make it. If I don't make it, I'll quit and be here every weekend again. And like, go take over the bar, go manage the bar or whatever.
Okay.
1 year, I said, like, how stupid and naive. But I did it.
But
I
we
ended
don't.
up,
Yeah, you did, right?
I did. I don't
Yeah.
know how.
Maybe there's something to, I mean, I listen to a lot of motivational podcasts and I talk to a lot of people about like manifestation and like the power of
Mhm.
that. It's funny, like I've never been the guy that like wrote in a journal as a young age, like this is what I'm gonna do, and here's my vision board, and
Mhm.
here's how I'm gonna accomplish it. However, there are things that I just kind of spoke out into being and just said, this is what's gonna happen. And a
Mhm.
lot of them have happened. I think there's something to that. I don't know
There is.
what it is, but I mean, like, even just you having that conversation, I think just put that out there as a possibility. You know what I'm saying?
You're so funny. You think so much like I do because I do the same thing. I daydream. As a mom, I always tell other moms the shower is your best friend. Go cry, go scream, go
Ah,
have a hot, steamy shower. If you haven't, that is my key. If you're having a
mhm.
bad day, lock the kid out, go have a nice hot shower,
Yep.
cry, scream, laugh. But that is when I've always done a lot of my like, man, it'd be so cool if I did this. Or like, and the same thing, I never wrote in a journal, I never wrote a vision board. I very much just said it out loud in my head in the
Yes.
shower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I remember the one time I was bartending, and this is kind of when I realized sex sells.
Mm.
Like, yeah, I started tying my shirt a little shorter and wearing like 2 push-up bras. I started to think as a bartender,
You were learning how to be a worker.
I
You were
was
learning. Yeah.
1000%. My
Yes.
bartending career taught me so much about being a
I'm
worker.
sure it did. Yes.
So I remember waitressing, and I remember I had the low jeans on and the top and everything, and I was like carrying my tray. I'm like, the music was playing, and it's almost like, because everyone's is like, it's a popular bar, so everyone's like, oh, I wish I was a bartender or waitress here, you know, kind of.
Yep.
And then I'm like, man, this would be cool if it was like an entrance, like, you know, or I'm like, man, what would it be like to walk out in front of, or be a movie star, or be an actor, you know what I mean? Like, that's, I remember exactly where I was at the Queen's Hotel. It was in the sports side. I remember I was wearing an ugly yellow bowling shirt that I had literally tied up and 2 bras on, and like ridiculous. Still no makeup. I had a haircut like Demi Moore in Ghost with a baseball hat with my bangs hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, just ridiculous.
But you're
But
like
yeah.
putting those ideas even just into something. Like,
And it's funny,
you know what
but
I mean?
until you said that, I totally forgot about it.
Oh, that's amazing.
But bartending, definitely, like Scott Demore always sells, I can sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
And that was part of being a bartender, because I had
Right.
to be professional, all suited up, talking to a group of lawyers. Both of them, they all got hammered, so like the tie could come off, and so you had to learn when to talk and how to talk, and what was appropriate. I'm very good at reading a room and which topic of conversation to avoid, or how to. Frankie always says I should be a hired for host, because even at my kids, not my kids, but other birthday parties, everyone's kind of standing there, and I'm like, hey, so what's going on? What do you do for a living? And I'm the one that,
Yep.
you know, trying to join everybody.
That's the number one skill set that I think isn't focused on enough in wrestling. And it's the same skill set that I've developed that helps me go into a school with literally a gym full of 500 kids and to be able to talk to them for an hour, is you have to be able to read the room. We're going to stop it right there for part 1 with my friend Traci Brooks. Cliffhanger. Sorry, guys. If you want the rest of this story, you are going to have to come back next week for part 2 with Traci Brooks, TNA Hall of Famer Traci Brooks. Or if you were like, you know what? Damn you, Cody, and your stupid cliffhangers that you do each and every week. How about you don't have to wait till next week? Head on over to patreon.com/Cody Deaner, and you can get the full, unedited, commercial-free conversation with me and Traci Brooks. Go on over to patreon.com/Cody Deaner right now. Be a supporter of this podcast, and you can listen or watch the video of my conversation with my friend Traci Brooks. That's one way you can support this project. Other way you can support is by checking out my sponsors. Go to restwhendead.ca or at restwhendead clothing on Instagram. Get yourself a t-shirt, get yourself a hat. Check out their super awesome signature series with myself, with Jody Threat, with Crazy Steve. They got a whole whack of other really cool designs. And I got to say it again, like I said at the top of the show, TNA superstar Havoc. It's her favorite, most comfortable t-shirt she owns right now. Where'd she get it? Over at restwhendead.ca. Go to ceofit.ca. Get all your supplementary needs. They got nootropics. They've got protein. They've got pre-workouts. They got it all. And it's at a super awesome price, especially for you Americans. You're going to get it in Canadian funds, but you're going to decrease it down into even less than what you're going to see on the site. It'll convert it automatically for you when you get your order. Orders over $120 for you Canadians is going to be free shipping, or at any size of your order, Americans, you don't get the free shipping, but guess what? $6. $6 for any size order. You can get that right now over at restwhendead.ca. You can get that right now over at ceofit.ca. Go and get yourself a t-shirt at prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner, including the Wrestling is Life is Wrestling logo shirt. Or go to cameo.com/Cody Deaner. Get yourself a personalized cameo for yourself or a friend or a loved one. If you want to bring me to your event, are you a promoter? And you can tell by listening to this that I love professional wrestling, because there's very few things in life that I love more than professional wrestling. If you want me to share my love of wrestling with you, whether that's doing a seminar at your show, doing a meet and greet, or wrestling on your show, because yes, even though I'm a TNA wrestler, I'm still taking indie bookings, hit me up. Book Cody at CodyDeaner.com. That's book Cody at CodyDeaner.com. Or you want to bring me to your school or to your youth event, because like I said, I am a traveling motivational speaker. I travel all across North America going into schools, youth events, sharing my story and the lessons I've learned along the way. You want to learn more about that, what I can offer your school or your youth group, head on over to chrisgrayspeaks.com. That's Gray with an A, chrisgrayspeaks.com, and hit me up and let's talk about what I can bring to your youth or your event or program that you are running. Next week, we will be back here for part 2 with my friend Traci Brooks. We just got started this week, and it's going to get even better because Traci is just one of those people that if you have never listened to Traci, she doesn't do a lot of these podcasts, but can't you just tell that she's awesome? Like, she's such an awesome person. And not only am I, proud to say that I know someone who I feel is so talented in the ring. Like I said, she's one of the best workers of all time, and I'm not just saying that because she's my friend. She's just go back and look at her body of work and what she's done and how she made everything better, no matter what she did in the ring, whether she was supposed to be the focus or the supporting character. She always played her role to perfection. So not only am I happy that I got to talk to her and because she's so talented, but I'm really proud to call her my friend. She's such a solid human being. And if you've never heard Traci Brooks, talk or go into a deep dive conversation like we have here today, well, you just learn how awesome she is. And tell your friends and let them know that they should come and listen to these conversations that I'm having right now with my friend Traci Brooks at Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube at Cody Deaner Podcast. And while you're at it, why don't you leave me a rating? Leave me a review. Helps the algorithm and helps more people know about these awesome conversations I'm having with my friends. And when you come back for next week with my buddy Traci Brooks, as we continue this conversation, if you learn nothing else by the end of the conversation that we have about wrestling and about our life, you're going to learn what we always learn. And that's that wrestling is life is wrestling. We'll see you next week, guys.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life is wrestling.